listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
Hey, thanks for tuning in and checking out my show Straight to Video. As always, I'm your host Rob Lane and hope things are all great with you. So as we head towards 100 episodes of this show in our very first year, I think if you were to go back over the various interviews and chats with the many musicians, there'd be a few regular names of bands that get a lot of love, either from acts that have influenced others, or ones that just carry a lot of cool stories and memories. Of course, a lot of people mention the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Van Halen of course, but if I think I was to make some kind of chart, then another band that may surprise you for regularly cropping up are one of my all-time favourite bands, Warrant. Now that might be because I'm a huge fan and any opportunity to discuss them, then I'm all in, but you know what, there is a serious amount of love for this band, and a lot of people realise how perhaps underrated and overlooked they were in recent years, and are now getting some, well, long overdue love. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to welcome a member of said band to join me here on the Straight to Video podcast. Thanks to some help from friend of the show Alex Kane, I got the chance to speak to Warrant lead singer Robert Mason from his home out in Arizona. This was a lot of fun to do, particularly from learning stuff about Robert I didn't know. Sure, he's been the lead singer of Warrant since 2008, taking over vocal duties from the late great Jani Lane and also Jamie St. James, who also filled the role for a short while. Unlike a lot of singers who have taken on the role of such a larger-than-life original member and finding it hard to be accepted by fans, Robert seems to have been welcomed by the band's fan base because, you know what, he does such a great job, treats the songs with a lot of respect and delivers every time he hits the stage. Now, I also knew of his time in the band Lynch Mob in the early 90s, but I learned a great deal in this chat, including his time doing backup vocals for none other than Ozzy Osbourne on his Osmosis tour in the 1990s. Robert was literally behind the curtain adding backing vocals and also doubling some of Ozzy's lead lines. Crazy, right? And also prior to our chat, Robert had checked out some earlier episodes of this show and noticed a few familiar names who he knew, such as Damon Johnson, Michael Starr, but he also picked up on Mike Gray from Skin and Jagged Edge. Now, of course, Mike's talent walks side by side to those just mentioned, but I was intrigued as to how someone like Mike, whose career is very much in the UK, would know Robert, who has worked primarily in the States. Find out in the chat, as it's pretty cool and a fun full circle for me too, being a big fan of Skin in the mid-90s. As always, I want to shout to our friends Dead Skull Coffee, who continue to support this show by offering you listeners 15% off your order at deadskullcoffee.co.uk by simply adding the promo code STV on checkout when you order their wonderful ground or full bean coffee. So please show them some love and support a great independent rock and roll coffee company. I'm sure they'll love to hear from you at deadskullcoffee.co.uk with the promo code STV. So let's get back to our chat. You can find Robert Mason on all social media platforms simply at Robert Mason Vox, and be sure to check out the new album Phase 2 by the band End Machine, which features Robert on lead vocals, George Lynch on guitar, Jeff Pilson on bass and Steve Brown on drums. A bit of a super group there. Also, Robert has been working with our friend Alex Kane on the mad as hell band Have and the Have Nots. This guy seems to be constantly in demand, so I was happy when he spared some time to talk to me. So hope you enjoy it as we dive into my chat with Warrant's Robert Mason.
9 o'clock, time to get ready. Turn up the radio, hot and heavy. Can't be late, racing out the door. Get behind a wheel, put the pedal to the floor. Get in sight for the freak show ride. Set this town on fire tonight. She got one thing on her mind. All she can get, I know she'll find it. Give it the gain, tap the master. She won't spoil, don't have to ask her. Going to the show, ticket in a hand, waiting all year to rock with the band.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, Robert. How you doing, mate?
Pretty well, thanks.
Excellent stuff. Thank you ever so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, Alex spoke glowingly, so anybody who he champions, I'm all down for.
I don't tell him too much, but he's been a big inspiration to me in the last 15 or so years.
Honestly, he's a different breed of cat, but I've known him longer than most people. Like we talk about it. We had a mutual friend in New York City who worked for the label, worked for Mercury Polygram, who said to me at the same time she said to Alex, she's like, you got to meet this guy. you get along so great. Like remember when friends used to say it wasn't like a friend request or wasn't something where somebody would just link you two together. You were like, dude, you got to meet so-and-so like that. And that's actually, we were like pen pals. Remember that was like, if you're old enough to remember, we actually wrote letters or called on the phone in the, I'm going to guess late 80s.
When did you actually meet?
We didn't meet until the first time, the sound check day of Florentine Gardens, 1991, I think. We played in Hollywood. Was it then or was it even later? Because we did a show, Lynch Mob, when I was first in Lynch Mob, we did a show at Florentine Gardens. We did like 14 shows in 12 days. I auditioned, I flew home. 2 weeks later, I was in the band. And then like a few weeks later, they said, well, let's book a club tour and see if we can kill this guy.
We'll test him, see if he's got the legs for this.
Before we write the next record, let's see if we can put this guy in the hospital somehow. So we kind of booked a super low budget van tour under the radar, sort of, but still obviously as Lynch Mob. And we went out and played all over California, back home to Arizona to finish it off. And we played a show at Florentine Gardens. God, Ugly Kid Joe maybe opened or some other band. And it was just like, you're Alex. Hey, you're Robert. Like I'd never seen his picture other than swapping videos or things of bands that we were in.
Once met, never forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't mean to be coy or like cheeky with you about the Mike Gray thing. Because you're like, how do you know Mike? I'm like, I'm saving that one for the interview.
Yeah, that is an unusual one. Like all the other people you mentioned, like Damon Johnson, I didn't know if that was a Cry of Love connection because of the stuff Damon did with Brother Kane. Similar kind of vibe, Southern rock kind of stuff.
Sort of. Everybody's, if you play the same circuits or if you're involved with the same circle of people, you have mutual friends you're like, bonded with because of the commonality. And Damon's one of those. Damon's a bro, like a real, oh my God, such a talent. He's so cool too.
But yeah, the Mike Gray thing, I thought, because Mike's career has been mainly based in the UK. I know he did some recording in the States, but that is a weird one.
Well, how voracious a reader of liner notes are you?
I used to be back in the day, but I'm in my 40s now, so the memory's a bit hazy.
Oh, you have no excuse. Come on. I got 10 years on you. Sorry. Look at the liner notes of the Skin record done at Goodnight LA with Keith Olsen.
Wow, awesome. I'm diving in. I'll have it up here on my CD rack somewhere.
See, I knew you'd have one handy. I have one too. My copy should be the same as yours. Mine has my name on it. I was hired by Keith to come in and spend, I guess, a week or two, a couple of weeks. And that's when I met all the guys, Andy and everybody. We had such great times hanging out in LA because that might have been their first time in Los Angeles, maybe. But yeah, I got to do some fun background vocals on their record.
That's some serious vocal power in the booth if you're in there at the same time as Neville McDonald.
That boy, that Welshman can sing. Come on. What's funny? I met him the first day and I'm like, he walks up and he's got a deep speaking voice. It's funny because he can sing like all get out, like anywhere you want him to. And at the time, obviously, this is, what was that, 93, 94, maybe? 94? Wow. Good Lord. And I'd see him and he was always like, Mason, like that. And one of the first things I said to him, dude, you sound just like Tom Jones when you talk.
I bet that curveballed him, didn't it? How does this American know about Tom Jones?
Come on, one of my earliest influences.
Yeah, how did you hear about Tom Jones? It's on my list of questions of like early influences. I've heard you've been a fan of his.
My dad turned me on to such cool stuff. My dad was into the whole 40s, 50s crooners kind of stuff and sang a little bit himself, but never made a full-time career of it. He kind of settled down and got the real job and had kids kind of thing, But I think always steered me right musically. And then later on had a little vicarious enjoyment through me being able to go and do what I do and was like the biggest supporter and fan. But I remember my dad sitting me down. I said this earlier to somebody not too long ago, because everybody, that's the inevitable question, name some names, drop some names on the floor that you were influenced by or whatever. But I remember as a very, very young kid seeing, God, it would have been like Andy Williams show or like a Christmas special or something on TV. Very young, back home, like in New York, New Jersey, whatever, when I remember that kind of stuff. And I mean like super early, 2, 3, 4 years old. And I had already been singing with my parents, had favorite songs. And, before I understood the math of music, I could sing. So I was like, okay, I'll do this. And I saw this guy on TV in like the jumpsuit growling, and he had a super powerful delivery, not just that clear bell tone crooner thing. He would dig deep and growl a little. And I'm like, what is this? Right. Even as a little kid. And I think that always struck me.
That guy's still at the top of his game. He's 80 years old.
Bless him.
I heard an interview. I don't know if you know Mark Maron, the podcaster.
Yeah.
He had Tom Jones on his show like a week and a half ago. And that guy is still on it 110%. It's amazing.
And a great sense of humor, a great sense of self. Like he understands, like he can, not in a mocking way, but like he can be light about himself and not too heavy-handed or, none of that pomposity. The guy is a historical figure, I mean, he's like legend is not a term you can't use on him. That guy's a legend and still is. You're right.
For sure. Well, we kind of just like dive straight in with this.
Well, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to dance first? I mean, you're going to take me to dinner? Come on, let's get going.
I finally got to see Warrant when you played in Nottingham a couple of years ago.
Oh, you're diving right in, aren't you? You get to see me go on late and have a few cocktails prior.
Mate, I loved it. It was so good. I know there was some drama.
Well, I don't start fights. I just finish them.
No, for me as a fan, it was awesome.
Oh, the show was brilliant. No, I had the best time once we actually were able to get going. And I mean, the fans were freaking fantastic. I hadn't been over. Do you know the last time I was anywhere in the UK?
I'm going to say Donington Park.
Yeah, Donington. Crazy, right?
Unreal. So that was your first time back. What's that? That's going to be like, getting on for 30 years?
It's nutty. It's 20-something, yeah, for sure.
Unreal. But yeah, I loved it. Warrant was one of the bands where once I heavily got into music around like 1991, they were the band, and I booked tickets to see them supporting David Lee Roth.
Oh, yeah.
In Birmingham. And they cancelled that night because apparently Jani fell through the stage and broke some ribs. I've heard different stories on it.
I was not there. I cannot claim anything except to the best of my recollection, Your Honor. I don't know anything about that.
But strangely, though, the band that replaced them was Jagged Edge with Mike Gray.
Oh, wow. Everything comes full circle.
You've had an exceptional career as something of a rock and roll journeyman until I guess you kind of settled down with Warrant in 2008.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I've used that same term. I honestly have used the same adjective about the time I've spent doing this. I have, once again, I probably will say it at least once every time I do one of these. I have the coolest job in the world for me. And I know it's not for everybody, but yeah, I mean, hindsight, would you want to have had your same best mates from high school put a band together and sell millions of records and be the same? Everybody, I guess, wants that when they're younger, or a solo quote unquote career or whatever. Who knows where your path takes you? I always try to make it work with a band situation, and have been in the company of some amazing musicians and producers and ancillary people throughout, all the time I've done this.
Have you always liked entertaining people?
I think, once again, it goes back to that like crazy early childhood thing where you just, the first time you do anything, I mean, it could be completely innocuous. You're a baby and you do the right thing, and your relatives around you go, yay, like that. And you go, ooh, ooh, ooh.
I like that attention.
And yeah, it doesn't have to stop there if you know what you're doing. I wasn't the actor kid, a performer in band and drama and all that kind of stuff growing up. I was in the chorus, not getting solos not pushing for that sort of thing, but I was always surrounded by music and took piano, keyboard based. This is my first instrument, this piano down here. Not this one, but actually like a church organ, like a 2 levels of keys kind of thing. Like an old Hammond organ was my first real instrument that I received lessons with, and rebelled against wanting to be a sight reader, classically trained, all the music theory. I heard it in my head, and my ear was better than my want to learn every mode and all that stuff. So I have a rudimentary musical education, and then just took it from there because I was voracious and I want to learn how to play this. I want to hear it. I could hear it and go, okay, let's find that. And boom, and there you go. Because I understood the basics, I taught myself a lot more of that. So I'm not the guy that goes into a session and reads charts or writes out charts, but I have an innate sense, I guess, of it. So that started really early. And, you get sidetracked with sports and academia and everything. And I found myself in college.
Is this all in kind of like New Jersey? Because she was born in the Bronx, right? In New York.
Right, exactly. Born in New York City. My parents moved us to the suburbs. Make a better life for your kids, you know what I mean? Like that American dream thing. So yeah, I'm a kid of the mid 60s. Then we moved to New Jersey and my brother and sister were born. And yeah, I just, that was the typical American nuclear family vibe.
How was the dynamic between you and 2 younger siblings?
I'm the oldest. I'm what my sister refers to as the example setter or golden child, depending on whether she wants to give me shit for it or not.
Isn't the youngest usually the golden child? I don't know.
Right, exactly, right. Like my little brother should be. But my sister's in the middle, so she's got that middle child thing, I think. or had it for a little while. We used to ribber about that. But I think when you're older and you experience those things first, and you want to break out first, the first one to go away and leave the house, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that maybe separates you a little bit. I'm super close with them now. And it was funny, my brother and I are, my brother's the youngest, so we're the furthest apart. I'm like proud of him and see things in him that I see, like, the connection between my dad and myself and him, the males in the family, like so many commonalities and things that's kind of cool to watch as the older brother.
Did you used to fight over what TV shows to watch?
Yeah, I always just kind of ruled the roost because I was the oldest. I don't know. And then I would, and then I took off. So
what shows got the vote in the 1970s?
Boy, I don't even know. What were the 70s all about in the States? God, I remember you had to watch Starsky and Hutch and Emergency, and you had to watch, but super early on, that night that was like Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, and then The Odd Couple. It was like a 3 in a row. I was like, Thursdays or Friday nights. Now you're really trying to make me do a memory jog here. I don't know. I was way more into music and movies than TV per se, and then going and doing stuff. I was a super outdoorsy kid, always on my bike or in the woods or going fishing, and that once we moved to the burbs and I had that life, you couldn't get me in the house.
What movies blew your mind back then? Because that's getting into the heyday of big blockbusters in the late 70s into the 80s.
What's so funny is my parents took me to see Jaws as a little kid in the beginning of the summer, and then let's go to the beach. Let's go to the Jersey Shore, and then like Rocky. My dad took me to see Rocky. My dad took me to see Animal House, my first R-rated movie, when I was probably too young to see an R-rated movie.
Where was the local cinema? Was that in Jersey?
It was just one town away.
Was it a single cinema then?
Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't even like a double. You're right. I think there was just one. They might have grown it throughout the years to the point where it had 2 pictures playing. Yeah, man. Small town America in the New York metro area. But I always had that pull back to the city.
You say you got into like your dad's music with all the crooners and all that kind of thing. What was the first music you kind of really considered yours?
Well, I had friends that had older siblings, so we would raid their record collections. And kind of early on, I discovered everything from Machine Head and Axis, Bold as Love to like Hotel California and wow, Toys in the Attic, all the Led Zeppelin stuff and all the Stones and Beatles stuff. It all kind of came at me at once through the radio, me discovering radio late at night with headphones on. There's great FM stations in New York at the time, WNEW, especially, I think I listened to a whole lot. And I have tons of memories, but then hearing like CCR and hearing how great that music was and vocally just one of the most iconic American singers, Bob Seger, like I was always drawn to the guys that had blues and guts and, maybe swore, a little and like, but then all the British blues stuff and guys that were imitating the old American blues.
Was there a bit of a romanticism with the UK? Because we have that with America.
Probably. I mean, I know we had, they still talk about the British invasion 1 and 2. And I definitely felt that, but I had to go get it outside the house or from radio because my parents were steeped in the stuff that was their generation. And it's not like they were closed-minded to it because I think a friend of my dad turned him on to Blood, Sweat and Tears. And my dad went out and bought the first Blood, Sweat and Tears album that I have in my album collection right over there. But I have it right next to Rockin' the Fillmore and like Johnny Winter and Live and like Frampton Comes Alive and then Who Live at Leeds. Like I loved live albums as a kid.
What is it about those live albums of like the 70s and early 80s?
Some of them were real, like real unedited, really happened live. And I think something exciting about a live concert experience that's just dangerous and it's not predetermined where that anything can happen and usually does sort of the mentality. And then I loved Janis Joplin, Stevie Wonder, Otis Redding. I mean, I loved singers that felt like they were hanging it out on the edge and like something might break. I don't know. But didn't, or it was brilliant, or like the cracks and pops and mistakes are all there. They left mistakes on like mistakes. You call it a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's like Brian Wilson said that. I don't know. Somebody said it somewhere. If you make a mistake once, it's a mistake. If you make it twice, it's part of the song.
That's the secret.
But there are like mistakes on Led Zeppelin records. You hear little errors and little blips and glitches and stuff. It's not really mistakes so much as sometimes they're happy accidents. We had a couple of those on the Cry Love record that I was like, oh, let's keep that. How the fuck did that happen? I didn't even hear it when did I sing that? That happened? And like, Custer, our producer, was like, yep, we're keeping that. Moving on.
Did you have like a favorite record store where you buy all your albums from?
There were local record stores. The famed Rainbow Records in New Jersey was in the town right next to mine. Johnny Z, where wasn't it Johnny Z? It was like where the Metallica guys first came to the East Coast, and a bunch of bands. Everybody would go play L'Amour or play, depending on what type of band you were, a Cat Club, Johnny Club, that kind of thing. I played all of them. Limelight. I was wearing my Limelight shirt. I was wearing a 35-year-old shirt the other day.
Is that like a genuine one from right back in the day?
Oh yeah, I have two. I have a long sleeve and a short sleeve. I had one that I lost, sadly, probably got ripped to shreds or lost on the road. But I had one, like new old stock one, that the guy that used to make them, I got it through him. And then I have a genuinely old one that I purchased.
New old stock's one of my favorite words.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like an XL. I'm like, no, I'll take it. I don't care.
If it's an XL from about 30 years ago, it'll fit just right, because them things are small.
Right, totally. Like the concert T-shirt that I got from the Who Kids Are Alright tour wouldn't fit a doll. Like the 3/4 sleeve baseball shirts, or like Blizzard of Oz tour. You'd go and buy shirt, whether it's merch, whether it's real. Like I bought shirts in Madison Square Garden, at the Meadowlands, like where I would go see concerts. That's funny though. Yeah, they fit me great now.
Was they your first gigs then, which you went to see as a fan? Did you have to travel to Manhattan, or did bands tour through New Jersey at all?
Like I said, I was always close by. I was always a tunnel ride or over a bridge away from Manhattan proper.
Was it ever daunting going in there, or was it just par for the course?
It was just, let's go. I think my mom, like the whole moving out of the city thing, was just like, fine, we're finally out of the city. We can have this, green belt, grassy suburbia, and cursed by her son that wanted to go back into the city all the time. Why are you going there? It's like, because I want to go, because that's where the work is. That's what I want to do, But yeah, I mean, I saw Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus twice at, I think, 1 and 2 years old, or 2 and 3, Madison Square Garden. So Kiss, Madison Square Garden. Queen and Billy Squier.
So many people have mentioned Queen to me. That must have been amazing to see Queen like that long ago.
I wish I had poured over every second of it. In real time, you don't think like, I'm not going to be able to see this every day. Every year, they're not going to come to my town. Yeah, saw some really cool, but saw Van Halen, not too early on, but like later on, like second, third record, fourth record, the Dave years. But then things like, Eddie Money put on an amazing show no matter where he played. Billy Idol, first time at the, Passaic Theater in New Jersey. Def Leppard and somebody, they were supporting somebody.
Just like Def Leppard supporting somebody.
In 81 or 80. So weird.
So what were your first steps into joining or forming a band? I
was the keyboard player in a band of just friends from high school. And then later on in that same incarnation, you play a battle of the bands, or you play a school dance here, or I think it started in the garage, literally in my friend's garage. We had no bass player, just 2 guitar players.
Who got relegated to bass? Surely one of them guitar players did.
Nobody. Well, what do we need a bass player for? We have 2 guitar players. And then that's that thing where you're playing in the garage, and then you open up the door, and then the kids from the neighborhood, because it was at my friend's house, not my house, friends from the neighborhood come by, and they're sitting on your friend's driveway cross-legged, and you're like, there's, I know him, oh.
Was there any girls there?
You read my mind. I'm going like, those 2 are cheerleaders that I'm afraid to even talk to. I'm not even going to make eye contact with. Then you realize you roll up that and you play Jumpin' Jack Flash and Sweet Home Alabama, and you're everybody's best friend. You're like,
this feels pretty good.
Once again, I want to keep doing this. Yeah. And it sort of just transitioned into clubs, and then more clubs, and original band, cover band, both. And then I just kind of got the bug. I was like, okay, I need to take this another step further. And even though I was playing the whole area around New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, down to Delaware, and back in that East Coast circuit, and then down the beach for the summer.
Was you booking your own shows?
I was in a couple of bands with a couple of different booking agents. Yeah. That just kind of morphed into if you can sing most of the stuff, you're going to be the lead singer. And everybody's harmony parts. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but it was just a thing that's always been in my head. I sort of hear Madness style, all of that stuff swirling in my brain because of that rudimentary education, thankfully, from my parents, listening to all that music when I was so young and so much of a sponge for it. You get to band practice, and I was soft-spoken and hesitant in the beginning. It was like, who knows that part of me? Who knows what are the harmonies? Well, I can show you what they all are. I can sing them, but I can't sing them all at the same time. So you have to do this one. And then you inevitably have a guy who's sings the same part as you, no matter what you do. And you're like, dude.
That's me.
It's like unisons, no. Harmonies, if you do this, see, I have this. If you do this, ooh, it sounds good. Somebody else does this. Look at that. It's a chord, And I got pushed in front more than forced myself there. And then once I was there, I was like, oh, this is fun and easy and I'm in the middle and I'm the center of attention most of the time, okay.
Did you need some like reassurance that you kind of knew you could do it, but you needed reassurance from somebody else to say, no, that sounds fucking good?
Like everybody else, I mean, you're insecure in the beginning and untrained. And I did not take formal vocal training until I was in my, I think like 20, 21 maybe. So yeah, it was a daunting thing at first. I was a college athlete, so I was like 10, 15 pounds heavier from playing sports and short hair, and then put you in front of a rock band and go sing this Deep Purple song. 1, 2, 3, go. I'm like, with the Union Jack in South River, New Jersey. Like, we're going, shit, what do I do? So yeah, I went through that. But yeah, you soon get confidence, and obviously applause and confidence is like a snowball. Eventually you're like, all right, this is my job. This is what I'm going to do. I get paid for this. This is cool.
You mentioned you went to college and university. Was it like an academic or let's say a normal path a consideration at any point? Because didn't you do some kind of like journalism?
Absolutely, yes. I was a writer, and yeah, didn't know whether that would lead me to an English degree in teaching, or I didn't really want to be a teacher, but some sort of journalistic endeavor, TV or print, or a law degree, furthering into the political science and legal. And I just didn't think any of those. I make the joke that I found the music industry ever so slightly more ethical than any of those other pursuits, but that's not really the truth. But yeah, I mean, I was disillusioned with it, higher education, and it just wasn't for me. I felt that pull, and I simplified to say I was driving to class one day, commuting, hearing a lot of stuff on the radio I could actually sing along with. I'm like, all right. And I'd already done a little bit of band stuff early on, like high school band stuff and grade school. And then I just was like, nah, I'm clipping this college thing and going straight into, let's go talk to these guys with this band and make something happen there.
So as it got to the mid to late 80s, I mean, New Jersey has had a lot of hard rock bands that became really successful around that time. Obviously, Bon Jovi was huge mid 80s onwards. But then there's stuff like Skid Row, Trickster, Danger, all from that kind of area. Were these all bands and musicians you would regularly see or brush shoulders with?
Oh yeah, no, many of them. And to a small degree, I was kind of a late bloomer. I was the kid. I think Snake and I are right around the same age. But I remember walking up to him when he came home from the road and like introducing myself. And then you get called up to play with the band that's playing there that everybody knows, like the mainstay club cover bands or whatever. So kind of got my name around that way. Then the band that I was playing with, I kind of bailed on because it was way more of a cover and club thing. Started going on my 1 day off, 2 days off from a regular club gig. I would take those 1 or 2 days and race up to Manhattan from wherever I was into the city and go write with bands or go audition for bands or go do sessions, recording studio stuff. And I really wanted to immerse myself there because I saw that as the hub that was closest to me. I'm a continent away from the scene in LA, but this is happening right here. And here's where the record company people are.
Was there very much a hard rock scene in actually New York and Manhattan, or was it more punk?
Yeah, there was some of that, but it was... all the bands would come through town and you would get opening slots at the Limelight or Cat Club or China or any other little places that were there for a minute and then gone. Places in the meatpacking district that were open for a little while. I know I played Don Hills, and like there was a bizarre place called Zone DK. Just D and K, not decay. That was a couple days a week. It was an S&M club. That was interesting.
I've never heard of that one. People have mentioned like the Limelight and the Cat Club and all these places. I've never heard of that one before.
Oh, yeah. And I played those. I mean, I've gone on stage. I brought a shotgun into the Limelight one night. It wasn't loaded, but I needed the sound on the microphone. So
why not?
Oops.
How was it for you knowing that you were a solid frontman with a voice, you could sing all these songs, and all these bands seem to be getting record deals and climbing the ladder? Was that frustrating, or are you a patient person and knew you just had to wait for your opportunity?
Neither. I wasn't frustrated by it, but I am not a patient human. It gave me drive. Like I remember seeing concerts, like being a few rows back for, Van Halen, and then leaving. And they're the type of people that would say, oh my God, I saw Van Halen. They're so amazing. I'm just going to burn my instruments and I'll quit playing. I would always be in 2 songs in going, fuck me, I want to be there.
You were aspiring to it.
Right. So for me, it was always completely uplifting and inspiring to go see shows or see a local band that was great. The Skids guys I kind of knew, and a few of the other bands, like other ones you mentioned. But yeah, it was driving for me. And I was in a couple of band situations that got really close. One that had a deal on Epic Sony, pre-Lynch Mob, that ended up getting shelved because the guy that signed us was the president of A&R, and then he left the company.
I heard about that. Was that a development deal for the whole band, or was people interested in you as a songwriter or a singer? Or?
It was a band I joined, and we had an attorney and secured that deal and just started demoing. You know, it's the thing where like, we'll front you money. Here you go, demo a bunch of songs. We don't hear the hits yet, or we don't hear enough to put a full record together, but we see promise. You would do showcases at, you know, like the rehearsal joints, the SIR or wherever, you know, Montana or whatever, like, or they'd come see you play a gig, and there would be a bunch of, I think we used to refer to them as record weasels. Take no offense at that, guys. But like all the A&R guys from medium to lower level guys would come see you and then report to their superiors. Then the Jason Floms would come out, the big guys, or like you'd say, oh my God, Michael Lago is in the audience tonight. And I still tease Michael about that to this day.
Wasn't you doing something at the same time as Firehouse?
We were working with the very same producer when they were tracking their first record. God knows how, well, I kind of do, but I won't say how he stayed up. That producer stayed up, did double sessions. I mean, I can only allege. But yeah, we would cross those guys as they were leaving and we were coming in, or vice versa.
Would this be around like 1990 time?
Like, yeah, it's got to be more like 88 to 89. And then we got passed on. Maybe at the very beginning of 89, because our guy that signed us went to a different company, and immediately we were the property of, you know, Epic Sony, and then a new guy comes in with his baby band. So yeah, that was probably 88 or 89.
Because I'm kind of interested, because I feel a lot of bands put out their finest material around that kind of just the change of into the 80s, into the 90s. But a lot of people feel that things became a little bit cookie cutter. Did you get any kind of feeling of like the machine mentality or input from labels saying, oh, we need you to sound a bit more like this?
I think everybody would get sort of targeted, or you were targeted because you were similar to something else and they were looking for that. Like, you know, we want a band just like, that's kind of what happens to those scenes. They eat themselves. They're self-destructing, where every label says we want Motley Crue, or we want a Van Halen, or we want a Poison, or we want an LA Guns. Then it's, well, we want a Faster Pussycat. And these are all bands like guys that I know directly or indirectly and are a fan of. Like, but I think you're right. There is a homogenizing is better than a watering down, maybe to say. And everybody's doing their damnedest. But yeah, it's very difficult to take your own path and not be influenced and follow trends because they're succeeding. You know, you go, wow, this band just sold a bunch of records. We kind of sound a little like them. What if we're not kind of stealing, but what if, like, I had a band with 2 guitar players that, to be quite frank, was like a cross between Night Ranger and Skid Row. And although we weren't really targeting that in either way, that was the time and that's what we were doing. And there was all that flash, and that was after the band that got dropped from Epic Sony. And I targeted 2 great guitar players from different bands that were in the area. I'm like, what if you used to be rivals, you work together, we're doing this thing. And it's not like I was the only person thinking that. We put it together, showcased for all the labels, opened for other bands, played all those, you know, clubs, theaters, whatever. And it just didn't take to any large degree. And then I found out about Lynch Mob auditioning and went, you know, forced myself upon them.
You forced yourself upon them?
I just found out about it, got a flight, found my way there, kind of interrupted their path of guys that were sending them demo tapes. I didn't send them shit. I called 2 friends that lived in LA that were in the industry that I knew, the only 2 people I knew. And then they told everybody in the Lynch Mob camp, they started like, we found your guy. He's living in New Jersey. He's an East Coaster. Here's who he is. Just call him. So the next day I had a phone call from like everybody from management to label to like Elektra Records. And they're like, oh, when can you come out? And I said, okay, give me a week or 2. Let me learn some, because I didn't know any Lynch Mob material, but I knew the band. I'd heard it on the radio, and I was a Dokken fan. So yeah, that's how I did that.
Are you one of those people who, when you see like, that's my gig, I know I can do a good job in that gig?
I guess so. Yeah. Even then, I mean, not in a cocky way, but it's like, I'm going to take this chance because this is a band. I respect the players. I like the music. It's cool. And they need a singer. I'm a singer and I'm ambitious. So I did it.
Did your band know that you were coming out for the Lynch Mob thing? Was you straight with them?
Well, I didn't tell anybody anything because I'm not the kind of person that does that. And maybe that's disingenuous of me, but I really didn't want to, if nothing came from it, I said nothing from it, and I would just maybe talk about it afterwards. But there was a big, didn't want to jinx it involved, maybe, all honesty.
You got the gig and something of a, let's say, a precursor for what was to come. You got to tour with Lynch Mob opening for Warrant on the Dog Eat Dog tour. You and Jani in particular hit it off really well.
We met when I was making the Lynch Mob record, in Los Angeles, and became friends.
Whereabouts did you meet?
A place called FM Station, right down the street from where I was staying at the Beverly Garland Hotel.
How was that tour with Lynch Mob and Warrant on the Dog Eat Dog tour?
Too brief. It was a weird time for music. We were playing arenas. Our 2 bands and Tortora was third on the bill. We had fun. fun. I mean, it was great. And I have really fun memories of that, mixed memories of that, because thought it was going to be longer than it was. I believe the history was we had a bunch of Kiss dates come through right when the record was getting released and we were going to go out on tour. And then for some reason, they cut their tour. They clipped a lot of dates that we were eligible for. So one day it was getting tons of fax messages about, wow, oh my God. I'm like, look at, playing, Madison Square Garden, we're playing there, like all that stuff. And then 2 days later, Kiss canceled their tour for 6 months. So we're going to send you out to do theaters for a while.
Did it take you long to get numb to that? Until you're on that stage, it ain't happening.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'll believe it when the lights come up. But yeah, it was fun. When you're one of the support bands, you kind of hang out with the headliner some, but then not some, because you're on a different time schedule. You're going on earlier, different bus schedule. But I mean, I spent time on the Warrant bus. They spent time on ours. It's like Jani and I would go out after Warrant was finished. He would announce a local club.
I think that was a Jani thing, wasn't it, from like a few tours previous? Strike a deal with the barman. So look, we're going to bring all these people, give us free beer.
We'll see you. Yes, bottle of tequila and 2 shot glasses. And then he and I would get in a cab when the crews were packing up and we were all showered and cleaned up and fed after the gig. And a couple times I got up on stage with them for like encores and stuff. But yeah, Jani and I would kind of disappear because we're the singers. You don't need us till like 4 a.m. when you leave town. Go someplace and go hang out and like jump up with a cover band, go see a band, or just get velvet roped off at a bar somewhere and sit and talk.
After Lynch Mob, did you return back to the East Coast to do like session work and stuff like that? And that's how the whole Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne connection.
I went back because Lynch Mob was going to be no more and just wanted to leave Arizona. So I figured I'd go back, to where I was from. I had a certain opportunity to be a session singer. Joe Turner had a connection because he was doing commercials and stuff, living in the city. And I hung out with him a little and a couple other people that I knew. Again, bouncing back into the city and all that. But I lived through the East Coast winters, and quite frankly, Arizona kept calling. And I was like, you know what? Let's go back. I'm sick of snow. And came back here, and Keith Olsen thankfully started hiring me to do some sessions.
Did you become like a go-to guy? Like Robert Mason's the guy, come in, reliable, do a fucking great job.
Well, I mean, the last part's arbitrary.
Well, so you're not reliable, the first part.
I did my damnedest. Yeah. So the thing that Glenn Hughes did for me, which was background vocals, and then kind of like a sounding board for my lead vocal ideas and stuff like that. And I got to ask Glenn Hughes, of all people, like in the studio, like think about how daunting that is. Glenn's going to sit in the control room. You're going to go out there and sing. And then you guys can, talk about shit, and he can come sing background vocals on your songs. Like, this is going to be great. But I got to do that. And our engineer at the time, Shay Baby, and I were talking about that earlier today, about how fun that was and what a great learning experience that was for me. Because I was so green. I'd never made a monster record for like a big label with all the money and, all that pressure and all that stuff. I had a great time and wonderful experience doing it with those guys. Keith was an amazing producer. Shay's killer engineer. And I got to work on a day where, you have to sing vocals, but we're going to stop and have lunch because Lou Graham's going to stop by and say hi to Keith for a couple hours. You can come and hang and have lunch with us. I'm like, okay. I had to do that. So yes, I got hired by Keith and a couple of others, I think, to do some sessions, just come in, background singer, do some song fixes. If a band from Germany came over called Axis at one point in time and they wanted their lyrics to be a little more Americanized, they saw themselves like to break in America like the Scorpions did. So let's not use all Oxford English. Let's, use a little slang. So I was hired to do that. That led to another. And then, yeah, like I said, I was in Arizona and Sharon called and said, Oz wants to have a real lead singer, do background vocals, a real singer to somebody you can blend with instead of using any tapes or trickery. And can you come and do it?
Was it simply just based on recommendation?
Yeah. She had called around a few studios and my name came up, 3 out of 5 times, or whatever the ratio is. And she just called me next.
Is that more pressure on you or more pressure on the people who recommended you when it comes to Sharon Osbourne? Because if you mess up, it's not your problem. He recommended me.
Well, but yeah, no, it ultimately falls on I accept personal responsibility. I'm not one of those people. He said I could do it. Yeah, I didn't even consider it pressure at the time because I was home. I had auditioned for Cry of Love and they were undecided. So I did not get the gig. I think it was like, and then was doing sessions and playing around a little bit and writing. And then she just called and said, hey, come out and join our circus. So I did.
Did you have to mimic Ozzy's style, or did you just do it in your own voice and let the sound guy mix it in just to boost the sound?
Well, I was background vocalist, so he tracks all those things. It's not like a caricature, but I mean, the melody's the melody. And it's not like I was faking an accent or a caricature of his voice, but our voices are not. If I clean my voice up and purposefully sing that way, those melodies, I can sound enough like it, so I'm a nice blend. I never, ever try to do an impersonation. You know, my voice sounds like my voice, but it's relatively versatile. I'll say that. So I did all background vocals, and then I started to get bored and would maybe double a chorus every once in a while. And Greg Price, the sound guy, was like, "Ooh, that sounds good." I might bleed a little of that in, I might not. Like that way I don't have to use any electronics, you know, because you see the sound guy at front of house at a concert, he's got racks of gear and he can, you know.
That guy's dancing.
Right, and he's all over his desk, or he's got automation at that point. You know, now it's all automated. Nobody's even got a knob or a fader anymore, it seems like. But yeah, it was a fun gig. I was kind of off the radar and not hiding, but hidden from view by the audience. I could go to work in a t-shirt, a pair of Bermuda shorts, and flip-flops if I felt like it, and just sing. And all I had to do was sing.
Your final show was Donington, right?
Yes, August of '96 with Kiss.
I was at that show. That was a red hot day. I remember when Ozzy was playing.
The times I had been over there, some of the best weather for the UK I think they ever have in recorded history is when I'm there. That time we flew into Heathrow and had a day off, and then went to Nottingham for that show, the other show that you were at. The day before was like 70s and gorgeous in London, and we were walking around. I think I took Turner and took him all around Knightsbridge and high-end posh shopping and bars and Indian restaurants, pubs and Indian restaurants the entire day. So, and then the beautiful weather, Donington that year was gorgeous.
What specific memories have you got of that show? Was it quite bittersweet? You're doing this huge, like, legendary festival, but it's your last show with Ozzy.
Some of that. And, you know, we had in the family, really, really bad tragedy. There was a death in the family from Max Cavalera's back in the States. And as I recall, Sharon gave them Ozzy's jet and they flew home, which was really, I mean, that was awful. You know, Sepultura was one of our openers on that tour throughout the whole year that I was around. I got to know those people pretty well. It was a really sad day because of that, but then it's my last Ozzy show. I'd given them almost 2 months notice. I'm going to make Cry Love record right after that. Yeah, I mean, Kiss, you know, to stand and watch Kiss. I mean, when I joined the band, Geezer was the bass player. I was in a band with half of Black Sabbath, like, you know, crazy. Then Geez wanted to leave, and we got Mikey. We stole Mikey Inez from Alice in Chains for a minute. And Mike, and that was Randy Castillo playing drums, and Mike and Randy and I had a great time. John Sinclair, amazing keyboard player, and one of the smartest and most funniest humans alive. We had a fun little band and crew, man. We had a great time.
After Ozzy, you mentioned you got the opportunity to join Cry of Love, and eventually you'd reunite with your friends in Warrant when Jani was unable to tour. Did you and Jani stay in touch? Was you still in touch when you got the gig?
Back and forth a little, yeah. He had gotten to a really, really dark place. I had wished him well, left him voice messages and texts when they got all five guys back together in '07 and made that announcement. And we're going to do that big tour, you know, with the whole thing. And he was sober and all that. I did actually reach out. I got like a text message back once, but I didn't hear back from him. And then it was quickly kind of off the rails for him. And they were having a really hard time. I ran into them at Rocklahoma and, you know, heard the tale from the other four guys and didn't watch the Warrant show. I had played the night before or earlier that day, and I was hanging out with the Queensryche guys in the hotel, I think that night when Warrant played. And there was hellacious weather. It's always like Soaklahoma or Mudlahoma or whatever, whenever they did Rocklahoma back then.
Had you and Eric and Jerry and everybody stayed in touch over the years? Or was that like the first time you'd seen each other in a while?
Not really. Like for Dixon and Turner, yeah, I hadn't seen them in a long time. I think I ran into Steve somewhere, and I had talked to Joey maybe a little bit. But yeah, everybody, you know, once the Lynch Mob thing was over, that was a bit of time. So, you know, you run into people on the road. I think in Cry of Love, one or two of them might have come to our show at House of Blues. We were supporting Cheap Trick and Cry of Love at that point and played in Hollywood. But it was fun. It was like right away, it jumped straight back in. Like I showed up at soundcheck that next morning, that Saturday morning after I played my gig before I flew out of town, and saw them for that purpose to say, you know, what's up, and immediately got the big hugs. And then the story that I had heard from Joey the night before about how they were really, really struggling to keep Jani on the straight and true and sober and healthy. And it was not working out that well for them. He was not even there. He flew in sometime that day and did the show. So they didn't even know at the time. It was, God, I mean, I hope our singer shows up. How many of their songs do you know? Those kind of conversations happened. They knew he was showing up on Saturday, and I got the hug from everybody, but I got the dude, and they got the dude where God, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do from them to a certain degree. So it was great and not great to see them at the same time because I saw what state they were in. Like I said, early on, Lane and I were friends. And then his decision to take us out was probably a great part of the reason that Lynch Mob got that opportunity. So I was grateful for that. And I'm grateful for what I have now and faithfully continue the legacy of that really, really good frontman, really good songwriter. And, you know, I got 4 guys in my corner and we all want to go attack the world again and start playing live shows, you know, and we've done 2 records. They're super fun to make. I'm thankful for that as well. Fans embrace some of those songs as well, but I get it. It is that legacy and nostalgia thing that so many people are bonded to, and the fans are there. They're like lifers, man. I'm hoping they're as chomping at the bit as we are.
Definitely. I'm sure they will be. I say, hopefully you can get to the UK again. I don't want to wait another 20 fucking years.
Yeah. And I'll do my best to keep my mouth to myself.
Amazing.
I had my reasons, but I shouldn't have laid it on the audience. That was dumb. I'll admit that. They don't care what kind of day you're having. I should just put, like I did it for the whole show. I put a smile on them like, fuck yeah, we're coming out. We're going to tear this place a new one, you know, and we had fun. We had a great show. I mean, we really did. And the audience is just amazing.
It was long overdue for a Warrant show in Nottingham. That was for sure.
Long overdue. Yeah. Really have had the greatest time every time I've been over there.
Sweet, man. Well, Robert, thank you ever so much. I've loved getting the chance to speak to you and connect, and it's awesome.
Yeah, likewise. Do you honestly have an autographed Sherilyn Fenn photo behind you?
Yeah.
Just caught up. Oh, look at that.
And a Michael Anthony Van Halen one there.
An 84 album cover, is that what that is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Michael. God, what a fun guy to be on stage with, and a background vocalist from like hell.
He's just like, I always say, he's like the most un-rock and roll guy from a stereotype. But once he hits that stage, he's just the biggest rock star on the planet.
Oh, exactly.
I love him.
We did a charity thing a couple of years ago, and I had to do a couple of Van Halen songs because clearly he's there and I'm a singer. So I'm like, Lukather and a couple other people are like, can you do this? You do this song. Can you do this song? And I'm standing backstage with Mikey and his tech, Mike Dugan, who I know really well too. And I say to him, so what are we going to do? And he walks back with 2 shots of tequila. He's like, I've never done these songs without drinking this. You should have some. Let's do them. Are you ready? Like, I'm ready if you are.
Do you remember what songs you did?
Man, it's usually not too deep in their catalog, but it's a hit. It's always Running with the Devil meets something else. I've done that with them a couple times. And well, since we had Greg Bissonette playing drums that night.
Not a shoddy lineup then. Pretty good lineup.
A bunch of hacks. They didn't have anything to do that night. Like Steve Porcaro. I mean, it's like, you know, Ed Roth. Like, yeah, kind of a good band.
But Mike's energy is just infectious.
Oh, yeah. He's the best, honestly. And I always bust a chop, so he sings way too loudly. They already like you, dude. You don't have to scream so loud. They already love you.
Well, thank you ever so much, Robert. I've really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Appreciate it.
Big thanks to Robert Mason of Warrant for talking to me here on the Straight to Video podcast and sharing some stories from his amazing journey over the past few decades in rock and roll. Be sure to find him on all social media platforms at simply Robert Mason Vox, and hopefully we can look forward to more music and shows from the Warrant camp in the very near future. If you'd like to listen to any older shows from this podcast, then they're all available over at stvpod.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We should be on pretty much all of them. Please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, or if you can, please visit our support page at stvpod.com where you can buy me a coffee, which allows you to send a small donation of your choice to go towards the upkeep and growth of this show. It really means a lot. So thanks again for listening. I hope you've had a good time and things are all good with you. And until we chat again, take care of yourselves and speak soon.